serving these, and I felt like we should just bring them on the show. You got some fries. You got to try them for me. How are they?
I was eating.
Is this representative of America?
They're still warm. The thing is, once they get cold, no longer good. So you got to eat them while they're warm.
It looks like we already have one of our guests joining us for this evening stream, and we'll putting the live results up on the board when we have them too. But and I don't know, do we have another? Maybe we just go to a full screen view for our guests. But we have Pastor Stephen Anderson coming on. How's it going?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Doing good. Do you have any McDonald's fries?
No, I didn't get the memo about bringing those. Sorry.
So, obviously you care so much about
I can tell. Look how nervous Pastor Anderson looks right now. He is waiting with bated breath for the results of the election tonight.
That's why I'm here, Johnny, on the spot, beginning of the stream. I'm here 'cause I'm so excited. It's a big night for me.
So just give us some early predictions here. What are your thoughts about the election? Do you have any inkling of what's going to happen tonight?
Well, I think that there's been a lot of push for high voter turnout. There are always these big pushes, trying to get everybody out to vote and all this. And I think that the higher the turnout, the more that helps the Democrats. Because if you think about it, the Republicans are probably just responsible enough, that if they want to vote, if they believe in the process, they're going to show up and they're going to vote. They're going to have the character to get down there without somebody having to beg them to vote or pay them or give them a gift card or drag them down there. And so I think that in 2020, there was a record voter turnout or whatever. And then this time they're talking about there being another record turnout because they're making it so easy for people to just mail it in or whatever. And I think that definitely, helps the Democrats. But there's a lot of energy for Trump. So I don't know.
I heard this rumor that you fully endorsed Kamala Harris in your preaching. What's that about?
That is true. Yes. So. Well, all I was just saying is that, our country's so messed up, and I was so irritated and frustrated with a lot of the feminist garbage in our churches and everything that I just felt like Kamala Harris is kind of the president that Christians deserve right now, since they won't take a stand on what the Bible says about a lot of things, but especially about, roles within marriage, feminism, stuff like that. So I just said that, that's probably the president that we deserve. I don't really care who wins. At the end of the day, I'm going to be fine. And God's going to bless us regardless, because all things work together for good to those who love God. And so I'm not too stressed out about it. Now, I'm
kind of interested. What would you do differently? Tomorrow, if it's Kamala or Trump, how's your day going to be any different tomorrow?
Well, no matter what, this Sunday I'm preaching about Armenia because it's our missions conference. But the week after that, if Kamala gets elected, I'm going to preach a sermon called The Great Whore. So that's really the only way it's going to affect me. If Kamala gets elected, I'm preaching the sermon called The Great Whore. The problem is, because I'm preaching on Armenia this Sunday, I'm sure all my past friends are going to beat me to it and preach all those sermons, So I'm going to be a week late on that. But if Trump gets elected, I don't really have a special sermon in mind. So I think that's the biggest.
I have some good news, because here's the thing. If Kamala wins, it might be drug out for a week or two before it becomes final anyways. So then you get that buffer. Because y'all are having your missions conference. You've had this a couple times already. Tell us about your missions conference that's coming up.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. It starts tomorrow night, and the cool thing about this is that we feature new countries every single time. So we don't talk about the same country twice. And then also we talk about only missions that have happened in the last 12 months. So everything's fresh, everything's new. That way it doesn't just feel like we're going to the same conference over and over again year after year. So that's what I like about it. And I've always loved geography. I love missions. So it's fun talking about these other parts of the world, learning about different countries. And it's just super exciting to hear about all the great soul winning that's happened. It's inspiring. So, yeah, those that are listening, you can tune in to the live streams Arizona time, it's going to be 10:30 a.m. in the morning, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then it's going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 7 p.m. So yeah, a lot of great sermons to tune into. But you know, back to the election. You know what I think? Just to kind of fantasize about, like, you know, what could make voting better or make our country better. What I was saying earlier is that the high voter turnout tends to favor the Democrats because, like I said, the Republicans are more like responsible people that are more likely to, like, get out there on the right day and vote and do whatever. But if you think about it, like, here are some suggestions that I think would make voting better in the United States. Like, how about this? How about you have to pay to vote? A poll tax. Okay, think about how great this would be. Just charge $10 to vote or $20 to vote. Okay? And it goes into the U.S. Treasury. So it's just a federal tax. It's like the only tax that I want to see added. You pay $20 to vote because then you'd actually have to care a little bit to vote. Then you wouldn't just have derelicts who don't even know what's going on just voting for something that they don't even understand, right? So you charge $20 to vote. Anybody who can't afford the $20 is probably not smart enough to be voting anyway. And
I mean, I think historically, in voting, you had to be a male, you had to be a land-owning citizen, and you had to be able to read and write. And to me, like, all three of those, especially in today's age, would probably accomplish the same thing that you're saying without necessarily the $10 tax, just because by owning property, you're paying property taxes, you're paying some of this. If they just want to tack on $10 to your property tax for this or whatever, then that's fine. But I don't know that it would necessarily. It seems like there could be some corruption there if you had to literally show up with the $10 or something like that. But I do think that, you know, something needs to change. And again, I don't know what's the best policy or the best system. Obviously, some people think a king or some people think whatever. But, you know, obviously this system has lasted several hundred years. I don't think that necessarily even the way that our government is structured is bad. It's mostly just that it's not being enforced correctly, that the laws aren't necessarily being applied equally, that we've had a lot of bad amendments attached and added to our government. Is just my personal opinion. And I think that if you had just land-owning men that could read and write voting in our country, it would probably be a lot different. I don't know what you think about that kind of a suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing about the landowning, though, is that obviously you have a lot of, you know, responsible, hardworking, intelligent people that don't necessarily own land. And so I think that might be a little bit too extreme of a requirement. That's why I felt like my poll tax was a little more reasonable.
Yeah,
but I do agree with definitely. Yeah, but I definitely agree with the idea of, you know, men who can read and write being the ones that are voting.
Should be the bare minimum requirement, I think.
But here's another thing that you could do, even just that would be less extreme, because I personally do believe that in 2020 there was a lot of fraud that went on. It's kind of funny when they say, "Oh, there's no evidence of fraud," because there were all kinds of things that came out in the open that were fraudulent. You know, whatever you think about whatever happened in 2020, but you know, one thing that I think should be obvious is that if you're going to mail in a vote, right? Because it seems like the greatest potential for fraud is with the mailed in votes. Okay. So it seems like, how about if you just have to get it notarized that it's really you, then it seems like that would prevent a lot of fraud, because you'd have to go down to a bank or go down to a notary or, you know, go anywhere that notarizes, mailboxes, etc., or whatever. And you could go down and show your ID, get it notarized, and then send it in. Because otherwise, what's to stop me from just getting my hands on a bunch of ballots and just sitting down and just filling out 10 of them?
Yeah, but you could have a notary stamping it. I don't really love mail-in ballots at all. I kind of like. I think we've talked about this before. I think just no mail-in is probably just the best.
I agree with you.
So
yeah, I agree with you that it'd be best to just get rid of it. But I'm saying if you're going to have it, require it to be notarized. Obviously, getting rid of it is better. Because we got to have an absentee ballot because people are gone. Yeah, but for every Republican that's gone, there's going to be a Democrat that's gone. It's probably just going to kind of balance out anyway. So I agree with you. Get rid of the absentee ballots. Get rid of the mail-in ballots. But if you're going to have the mail-in ballot, at least if you had to get it notarized, that would cut down on a lot of fraud. And again, I'm just for putting up as many obstacles as possible to voting. The harder it is to vote, the better the result's going to be. Because then it would be people who actually care and that actually have thought about things and whatever. So making the polling places be a little further away, you got to pay a little bit of money. The more obstacles, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree, but to some degree, I think people would argue about feudalism. If you started getting really, really stringent on all the different requirements of only the sophisticated, educated,
turned it all feudal.
No, but but here's the thing. If we didn't have an economic just disaster and high interest rates and whatever, most people could probably afford buying a property if they were, trying, if they wanted to or tried to. And to me, if you have these requirements, number one, only men make sense because only men should be required to go to war, to be drafted or put on the front lines. So they have to make decisions that affect them directly. Additionally, by being able to read and write, those who are going to basically uphold society, those are they're going to actually take care of legal things and medical things and whatever. They have to be able to read and write. They need to be able to have a vested interest. And then those who are land owning, whatever laws are passed are going to affect them more directly than people that may be just migrating, traveling through, sojourning, not owning any kind of property. So to me, all of those things have a direct attachment to why they should have a greater opportunity to vote, or they have the reason to vote because these things directly affect them. And then it makes people, if they really want to change something, hey, I need to own property, I need to educate myself. And, again, I think we still have a large electorate. We'd still have a large group of people voting, but we would still have a lot less than we do today. And so we wouldn't have to worry about it taking so long. We should be able to count all the ballots on the day that it happens. One day, paper ballot, count the ballots. And, I think that when people they don't feel disenfranchised. I just feel disenfranchised in general from voting, and I feel like it doesn't really matter. I don't have much of a say. These things aren't that important. And I think when you give men back the power, and talk about being against feminism, when you give back men the power to rule our country and our nation, I think that we could see some dramatic differences. I think abortion wouldn't even be legal anywhere. I think that abortion would probably be illegal across our country. I think that we wouldn't jump into wars the way that we are. And I think that the economic policies would be more favorable to business owners and just general economic prosperity as a nation when those who own that property are the ones that are having to deal with this. Again, with the Bible system, you have Jubilee, which always resets things and kind of affords people to have a starting chance again. And we don't have that in America. But we do have regulations, right? Supposedly, you're supposed to break up monopolies. You're supposed to put some kind of limits. Google shouldn't be able to own YouTube. And, certain technologies that get really tightly coupled, Apple has its phone, Apple has its software, Apple has the App Store, and it's all locked down. And you're kind of forced to use all their software, their technology, their device. And that really causes these horrible monopolies that stop entrepreneurship. If Apple was, and I've seen there's lawsuits out there to stop Apple from preventing creators from having their own apps on an iPhone that they could then create apps and put them on the phone. Because right now it's locked into the App Store. And then the App Store charges 30% or something like that. And so again, you start getting these monopolies where wealth just gets really disproportionately put in the hands of certain small groups of people. I don't think that, just by making the voting class being just land owning in general, that would necessarily create as bad of a feudal system as maybe we've had in Europe or in other parts of the world historically. I do think that it's pretty reasonable. And maybe the government could have buying assistance programs and different things like that to help people buy a small property to get started. But, I just think in general, I agree with you that the requirement, to let just these 18-year-old girls who don't even know anything to go in there and vote for our nation. They may not even be able to read and write. It's just kind of insane. And we see that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, here's the bottom line. It's just that if every single person in America voted, then Kamala Harris would for sure win. That's just kind of the way it is.
Let's put some of the elections. I don't know if we can put that on the screen.
The less people vote, it usually goes better for conservatives. You know what I mean? High turnout is typically for the liberals.
Excuse me, not president. Wow. Pastor Anderson.
I wish. President Anderson, did you write him in? Did you vote today and write in President Anderson?
I've had a long day, folks. I'm going to botch a lot over the next couple of hours here. You're going to have to bear with me. Pastor Anderson, I'm curious with that statement you just made. So in your mind, then, most of America leans left?
Yes, I believe so. I think that there are more liberals and more Democrats in general, but I think that more Republicans tend to actually get out and do the voting. And so that's, and just to kind of support what I'm saying, whenever you look at who is pushing these like high turnout things, like we got to get people out voting and stuff, it's usually paid for always by a liberal cause or a left-wing cause. Just yesterday I saw a sign talking about how like, hey, you need to vote and don't be this guy who stays home, whatever. And it's like paid for by, and it was some super liberal, super left-wing cause, and it almost always is. Whenever there's a push to just, hey, it doesn't matter who you vote for, but just get out there and vote, it's usually a left-wing push because of the fact that if everyone votes, it's going to go more left. Because the liberals in general, left-wing people in general, are probably less likely to actually get out there and do it because it's a lot of like derelicts and stuff that just aren't even going to get down there. You know what I mean? Obviously, there are responsible people and derelicts on both sides. But I'm saying in general, when there's a low turnout, it's better for conservatives. There's a high turnout, it's better for liberals. Because I do think that the general population leans more left than the actual number of people who vote.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I just think that the Republican Party is no longer Republican. And so that may not be completely true because to me, like Donald Trump is a Democrat. Like if I were to really just look at his policies, his positioning himself, like the things that he stands for, he seems like a Democrat. And really the left is just like extreme. So I think that Donald Trump is appealing to a lot broader base of independents and maybe even a few Democrats than would normally be the case. And so I think that's why he's so dangerous to those in power, those in control, the Democratic position and party, because they in general have counted on a lot of these people voting for them that Donald Trump is appealing to because he has such liberal policies. And I saw, I know your best friend, James White, he made this comment, and I actually liked it, though. He said that typically towards the end of an election, you see both candidates moving towards the middle because they're trying to get those like independent voters at the last moment. And they're kind of like maybe pandering to the other side, coming back a little bit. And it seemed like the Democrats weren't doing that at all. It seemed like they were just like even getting more extreme, more weird. And whereas Trump was getting much more liberal.
Are you talking about in this election?
Yeah, in this election. It seemed like Trump was getting way more liberal. I thought
I've been hearing, it seemed like, because I don't really follow politics, admittedly, but the one thing I did do was I believe that I watched part of the debate between Trump and Kamala Harris that happened a while back. And it seemed like she was trying to say a lot of conservative things. And it seemed like a lot of the ads that were coming up on my YouTube and stuff.
No, that's probably true because she copied a couple of his positions.
Yeah, she was like copying a lot of his positions, and then it seemed like she was saying a lot of things about how like she's not going to raise taxes and how like she's going to support the middle class and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. It sounded like there was a lot of conservative sounding stuff coming out of her mouth. So I think that she probably was doing that. But one of the things that I talked about in my sermon, I think it was this Sunday morning, was just the Orwellian signs all over Phoenix, which was kind of annoying to me, like where there were just so many signs where it's like Democrats for Trump, Republicans for Harris. And it was just so weird. Like, and I'm trying to remember what the other Orwellian signs were, but it was all these like kind of backward things. Oh yeah. The other one that I thought was funny was like, it's a picture of Kamala Harris and it's saying like a new way forward. And I'm thinking like, you're the incumbent, like you're the vice president right now. And your party is in power in the White House. So how is voting for the party that's already in power, how is that a new way forward? It just seemed like all of the advertisements were like the opposite of reality. Like conservatives are for Harris and liberals are for Trump and Kamala is the new way forward. It's just like weird advertising.
Well, just to give everybody a recap, because I know you're wanting to know a little bit about the election. I'm on the apnews.com, and they have essentially just kind of this map of the United States. They say that so far they've kind of ruled that 99 electoral college votes have been secured for Kamala, 177 for Trump. And here's kind of some of the breakdown. Of course, they've already given, actually, if you go down here to this list, it kind of tells you which states, but Indiana for Trump, Kentucky for Trump, South Carolina for Trump, Vermont for Harris, Ohio, they've already given it to Trump, West Virginia to Trump, Alabama.
None of this is shocking.
Yeah, most of this is pretty
Florida
expected. Connecticut.
Florida used to swing back and forth. Now it's a solid red state.
Yeah, Connecticut for Harris, Delaware for Harris, Florida.
So Georgia, Ohio is not a swing state?
It has been historically, but
it's gone Trump for this is the third time in a row now.
So they only have 58% of the counts of the votes counted, but they already have almost like it's 9 points ahead. He's 9
it's
points
been
ahead
called.
Approximately.
Texas was called too, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, shocker! Texas was called.
You know that map that you just showed a second ago. It's interesting how when you actually look at like a map of an individual state, how like almost all counties will be Republican, and then it's only the big cities that are liberal. You know, like when you look at Illinois, has already
rural
been
areas are not liberal.
Yeah, like when you look at Illinois, has already been called for Harris, but that's probably mainly just driven by Chicago. You know, and if you look at California, for example. You know, you have the liberal big cities, but then there are just so many counties that are just all going to be Republican. Yeah, obviously the California results aren't in yet, but you just popped up one state or other, and it was just like all red except a couple of counties that were the big.
Yeah, we can look at Illinois. Well, and here's the thing that almost signifies again my idea of landowning. Think about how many people in Chicago don't own anything. And think about all these rural people owning all this land. It would totally shift how things work. But, you know, I mean, and in a lot of ways that people would be like, oh, I don't want to be ruled over by a bunch of rich oligarchs or something. But, you know, again, tons of people own just a small little piece of land somewhere randomly. And I'm not saying that's a perfect system. I'm just saying I think that it makes sense. And I think that it would be way better than what we have.
Land. Let's say that I didn't own land, so that I'm like, oh, this isn't fair because I don't have to vote because I don't own a house, or I'm not a homeowner and only homeowners are allowed to vote or whatever. But here's the thing: like, I wouldn't really feel that way as long as the outcome's going the way that I want it to go.
Right.
I wouldn't just be like, I want to do it. I want to get to do it, like a little kid or something that they want to like pour the sugar into the recipe that mom's making or something. You know what I mean? Like once you become an adult, you're just like, I don't care who pours the ingredients into the bowl. I just want to eat the cookies when they come out of the oven. You know, whereas like a little kid's like, I want to do it. So at the end of the day, like I wouldn't care if I were not allowed to vote. As long as the right government's being put in, you know, as long as people are being put in. And I will say this, you know, the American system has obviously been super successful. I mean, I believe that America is the greatest country that has ever existed in the history of planet Earth in any period. You know, I think that America's success is unprecedented. And the fact that it's, you know, lasted for, you know, almost 250 years now, using pretty much the same Constitution. I think that the problems that we're having right now is not necessarily the Constitution. It's more the way it's being interpreted, the way it's being executed, the way it's being violated, and you know some of the amendments that have come about later. I think that the original system was and still is a great system, and that there's a lot of good things to be said for it. Back to what I was saying earlier about the whole voter turnout thing. What I see happening in the future is that it all becoming electronic, and you don't even go to a polling place. It's just an app. It's just an app on your phone.
That's bad though.
You just
it needs to be paper.
And if it's that easy, where you're just doing it from your phone, doing it from your computer, even if you take the fraud factor and just say that there's a way to just make it totally secure and encrypted, and it's for sure fair, and people from both sides are monitoring it, blah, blah, blah. Even if you take out the cheating factor, just making it that easy where some slob can just kind of roll over and just kind of belch and just kind of push a button on his phone to vote, is going to make it go more liberal than if you have to actually drive somewhere or walk somewhere and show up on a certain day at a certain time, and you have to be sober and awake and coherent. That's going to make it more conservative the harder it is to vote.
Yeah. I'm looking at some of these comments. Let's just do a poll. We'll just do a poll on my suggestion.
Trade Selector asked a question about your suggestion.
I'm going to answer. We got some questions in here. Number one, they said the largest farm owner in the United States has been to Epstein Island 34 times. I'm talking about Bill Gates. But see, here's the thing. Bill Gates could own 100 acres or 100, way more than that, a million acres or something like that. And he still only get, one vote. Whereas
one vote, yeah.
Whereas one person owns just a small portion of land and they still get the same vote. And so it's not necessarily just going to go in the favor of just all these rich people. And you could see these rich people trying to buy land for all their buddies or something like that. This small little tiny part of the land to really rig this election or something. But I mean, for the most part, I think it's a decent idea. I'm not saying that it's perfect. Maybe there's some way to get around it, but maybe we can
when
just
you say owning land or owning property, you just mean if somebody just owns a house.
Yeah,
that's enough.
They own there's some dirt attached.
You own a condo.
Yeah.
You could own a little condo. You could own a house. You could own a townhome. You could own anything.
You could have property and just have a trailer on it. You could just own a piece of land with literally nothing. It could be raw land. It's just that it's just showing this person has a vested interest in that particular area. And maybe to qualify it, maybe it would be that you own land that's your primary dwelling. So then maybe it's, you have to basically live on the property.
Yeah, but I think my $20 poll tax is just way simpler and would kind of accomplish almost the same thing.
I just don't see that. I just don't really like it personally, but let me see. Is our crew...
Why don't you just want to cough up the $20, man?
Well, I think that they're going to just have all these Zucker bucks or whatever giving money to all these people in the poor neighborhoods to go run and vote, and it wouldn't.
Okay, fine.
It wouldn't change anything necessarily.
Okay, well then it's got to be $100 then.
You're really. I already don't want to vote. You're making it so I'll never want to vote ever. Whereas I feel like if it's men that can read and own land, I probably would vote every single time.
Well, ironically, I'll only vote if I have to pay to do it.
That's weird. That's hilarious. Just make it $1 million.
No, I mean, look, it's not about being rich. It's just my point is you would have to actually care.
Yeah, you're weeding out idiots.
You're weeding out people who are just complete derelicts who don't care, who aren't paying attention. Look, but even so, even just if you could just get rid of the stupid mail-in ballots, that would fix a lot. Or at least make it to where you have to get it notarized. Because anybody who really wants to vote could take it down and get it notarized.
Really, just almost anything would make an improvement, because I'm pretty sure California had passed a law recently saying you don't even have to ask for ID now. If they just show up, they're a warm body, you can just get them to vote. You can't even ask them for ID. Yeah. So, I mean, almost anything would make sense more than what we're doing right now. I know that a lot of mail-in ballots, you're supposed to do a signature match, and that makes sense. You go down to register, you sign, and then when you vote, your signature has to match that signature that's on file. And they have someone checking though? Well, in theory, yeah, they're supposed to be doing signature matching. So what they do is it comes on the screen, and they have a Republican, and a Democrat on both sides, and then they have the poll worker, and then they all have to agree, and then when they agree, then it gets counted. So, in theory, that's what's happening. But last cycle, they were saying that they were kicking the Republicans out, so then there was only a Democrat and a poll worker watching, and then they just did mass approvals of they were just doing signature match, and they said they had something crazy, 1,000 that they had approved in a matter of 20 minutes or something like this, or they were approving 1,000 per 20 minutes. So they're so this means that they were looking at the screen for less than 1 second every single time. And it was just it was pretty obvious that they were showing how they were just clicking through in the middle of the night when they brought in all these ballots that didn't match any of the signatures. And they even had the exact same signature for every single one of the ballots or something like that. So, I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, if you want to cheat, you're going to cheat. I mean, I don't really know.
Well, so I was looking at these results that are coming in, the states that have been called or where the leads are or whatever. And then what I was doing is I was kind of comparing it to the 2020 map, because I guess what you're looking for is things that change between 2020 and 2024. And so it looks like back in 2020, Biden won in Virginia and Georgia. But right now it's showing that Trump is ahead in Virginia and Georgia.
They called Virginia for Harris.
For whom? Oh, okay. So scratch that then. I must be looking at something. I must be looking at something that's outdated then.
Who's they?
Because I'm on Google and it shows it as.
I'm on the Associated Press.
Jews, maybe, I don't know.
But Ben? Where are you getting your information? Because I'm looking at the Associated Press.
We're trying to fact check you, and we're struggling.
I saw it on X.
Well, because I'm showing that Virginia is showing a lead for Trump as well as Georgia. But
let me see. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me fact check myself.
The Associated Press has 50% of the votes counted. Trump's up 2%, approximately, 1.9. It looks like.
Were you talking about the popular vote?
No, I'm talking about Virginia specifically.
I'm sorry, Virginia. Oh yeah, I see. I'm sorry, I wasn't looking at the screen.
Now, I refreshed the page. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe the Associated Press is behind on the data, but
yeah, maybe I was wrong.
Yeah, I'm looking at the same data that you are, for the Shelley. So,
I mean, as much as I can understand it. It seems like, and it's weird to say, but it seems like Pennsylvania is the deciding state. So whatever happens with Pennsylvania.
I mean, is that really true? I thought that's just a super liberal state.
It is. Well, it's kind of like a toss-up, but I mean.
Well, hold on. So Trump won in 2016.
Yes, he won in 16. Then they stole it from him.
Did he do Pennsylvania?
He lost Pennsylvania in 2020.
But he did get it in 2016?
He got it in 16.
Yeah.
So as far as I can understand, Pennsylvania is one of the most important. I'm not saying that it's for sure a guaranteed lock-in, but I think that it's probably one of the most. Looks like we got another guy joining us this evening, Brother Dylan.